All right, so hi Danielle, how are
Hi,
you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, good.
Having fun.
Yeah.
It's a convention.
Oh yeah, I'm having loads of fun. I
Mm.
wish I could see all of the speakers and do all this at
Yeah,
the same
no, I know
time.
what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like you have to pick and choose which
Hmm.
ones you do.
And I am the godless engineer, a conscious pioneer, a logic general, a reason brigadier. More bullshit from the pulpit. Meet me in the comment section and you get schooled, bitch. The godless engineer.
So to start off, who would you say is the greatest guitarist of all time?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's a huge question because it really depends. Um, I like so many different kinds of music. I started on classical guitar, so a lot of my favorites are classical guitarists. But I also love jazz, and I love rock, and I love all sorts of things. Eric Johnson is amazing. He's one of my favorites. Steve Ray Vaughan is also one of my favorites. Um, man, that's a tricky one. Uh, yeah, Joe Pass is also very high on the list. Yeah, but.
Yeah, I would have to say that if I had to pick like my favorite, whatever subject,
Mhm.
I would have multiple ones at the top.
Yeah,
So
it's just it depends on what you're in the mood for.
Yeah.
Music is one of those things that the whole amazing thing about music is that it's such a broad thing that it can you can have a passionate way to approach it from almost anything, and it, it fits the bill.
Yeah.
It just depends on what you want to listen to.
How long have you been playing guitar?
I started guitar when I was about 12, and yeah, I've been playing piano before that, and violin and clarinet before that, but guitar specifically 12 or 13. I started performing when I was about 14, teaching lessons around that time, uh, and then I started doing that full time when I was about 17.
Cool, very cool. Now, what would you like to say to Phil Robertson of Duck Dynasty?
I consider people like Phil Robertson unfixable, unsalvageable as far as his thought process. There's two types of people that are that far off the end of hating atheists and seeing us as sociopaths and not just immoral but amoral and who hate us as citizens of the world. The people the two camps are the people who are faking this for attention, people who I think like Bill O'Reilly. I don't think that he's an educated person. He knows a lot of people who are atheists. He's had conversations with enough atheists that I think that he really doesn't think that we are attacking Christians. I think that he does that because he's on television and he understands how this works. Then there are people like Phil Robertson who I think genuinely has no compassion for humans. I think Phil Robertson does not understand that atheists have this internal drive, as most or almost all humans do, not to hurt other people. And that for Phil Robertson, it makes sense to say that without God telling him that he'll be punished for not killing people, that he would kill people. And I have no interest, zip, in trying to convince someone like Phil Robertson that God doesn't exist. Because for Phil, the only thing keeping him from killing someone and raping someone and seeing those things as wrong is this flimsy belief that he's going to go to hell for it. Someone said something similar to that. That's not my original thought. I just want to give credit where it's due. I think it was Dan Barker, but that's. I mean, there are people in this world who genuinely do not understand that morals can exist in atheists, and I think that he's one of those people. And I think it's safer for the people around him for him to believe that he'll be punished. And if he wants to believe that, I'm not going to try to talk him out of it if it keeps humans alive and not raped.
Kind of playing off that a little bit, how do you feel about his most recent comments about, atheists, the theoretical burglars in the house and
Right.
wanting to cut off the guy's junk in front
Yeah,
of his rape
right,
wife and
right.
whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, and the problem that I have with people, it's a minority of believers, but the minority of believers who genuinely do not have compassion for other humans and cannot look at another person and empathize and say, I believe that morals come from God, but I can understand that you also genuinely, sincerely hold that certain things are wrong and that you would not do them and you do not do them even though you lack belief in God. the problem with people like Phil Robertson is that he, for most of those people, I don't really care if they believe that, if that's what keeps them from hurting others. But for Phil Robertson, because he has a platform, this is a serious problem. If he's trying to tell other people that atheists are immoral or amoral, that atheists have no concept of right or wrong, that's a lie. It's an absolute abject lie about what atheists believe and what is moral or immoral. And it's a scare tactic to keep people from exploring atheism and to scare them into maintaining religion. Religion depends on ignorance. That's how it functions. It discourages people actively from learning about other cultures and from learning about other points of view. And the cure for atheism is education. And by vilifying us and literally demonizing us, people like that are able to scare people into not even talking to us, and learning that we are moral people, and learning that we have an idea of empathy and compassion absent religion. It's the virus of religion that's trying to keep itself alive by fighting off competing ideas, and it's effective in his case.
Do you feel like that type of Christian thinking is more or less dying off, or do you think it's getting stronger?
I think for a certain type of believer or a certain type of human being, I think that type of thinking it's okay. For a certain type of human who lacks compassion and empathy, that they're going to be drawn to those types of systems, regardless of what system they're raised in. This isn't just religion. I mean, there are other types of systems out there that don't depend on a God belief or superstition that can also be very brutal. I'm not saying that religion is the only brutal system out there, but I think it's especially dangerous when we're talking about religion as the brutal motivation for this sort of thinking. And the reason that I think that religion is especially dangerous is because there's nothing keeping it in check. As long as you have faith as your justification for why something is okay or moral or correct or right, or why it's what you should do or are supposed to be doing, there's no way to talk you out of that unless you can convince somebody that evidence does matter. And Sam Harris has a great quote about this, where I think it was on Book TV, where he was talking about if your argument that that it's okay to kill this certain set of people is based on a God telling you that it's okay, and not based on evidence or logic or reason, what evidence or logic or reason are you going to offer to that person to convince them that they're wrong? If that's not something that they value, evidence or logic or reason, you're not going to be able to present them with those things that will effectively change their mind. The only way to do that is to first convince them that evidence leads to truth, which is the basis of naturalism, and then you can show them evidence that what they're doing is harmful and wrong and immoral, and what they're saying doesn't make sense, the part about the faith-based superstitions and God telling them what to do. I think that it's easier than some people make it sound, because even those people who base the core of what they say they believe and the way that they interact with the world on faith, they do use evidence in every other part of their life. This is Sam Harris, where he said, if you tried to tell a religious person that his wife was cheating on him, he would require a standard of evidence before he believed you. He would not just take it on faith that that's true. He would want you to show him that was true. And so these people do understand the concept of evidence. They do understand that you don't just believe things because somebody told you, that you have to have some way of backing it up. They just give a free pass to religious claims, and that's something that we need to work with them to get over that.
And finally, if you could talk to yourself 5 years ago, what would you say to yourself?
I would say one of the major things that I think I would say, and this is only partially related to religion, is that I was still living in the Midwest at the time, and I didn't have any friends who were transgender, and I was not at all knowledgeable about transgender issues, and I didn't know that this was a thing. I didn't know that that there were solutions to this issue, to this problem, and that this was something that you could actually address, and instead of just being depressed about. And the older you are, the harder it is to address it, just for all sorts of aging-related medical things, and like anything like that. And it would have been very nice to tell myself, hey, it's okay to like Google that and learn about it and meet some people and go to support groups and like actually start with this. You don't have to be upset at yourself that this is a fact about you, and you don't have to be upset at God about this. I was so religious 5 years ago, and I guess the other thing that I would want to tell myself would be that religion is not the source of truth that you think that it is. I became convinced of that not as a child, unlike I think a lot of religious people. I became religious when I was 20, and I believed in God already, but I wasn't in totally immersed in religion until I was 20. And I think I would have wanted to tell myself that in the same way that you had a complete change of mind in how important this is to life and how true this is, the fact that you were able to completely change your mind on that issue once shows you that you might be wrong about it. In the same way that, you could take this with anything, but say vegetarianism. I used to think that there was no problem with eating meat, that it was a fine thing to do. Most people do it, and I never really thought about it, and now I feel differently about that. In the same way, I have much less confidence in vegetarianism now, I think, simply because there used to be arguments that I agreed with on the other side of that, and I can still argue the other direction if I want to. I don't know. I think if you have a smart person and you have reasonable arguments and you disagree on something, that should lower your confidence in how factual that is. If it's something like a moral argument or a subjective type of thing, I'm not talking about science type of things. But religion is something a little different. The religion makes absolute scientifically false claims that are demonstrably wrong. And it's not a matter of opinion, it's not subjective. We can show that these things are wrong. And I would have wished to have spoken with myself and say, hey, stop spreading lies, research this stuff, and get yourself out, because you're harming the world.
All right, well, it was really nice talking to you today, Danielle.
Yeah.
I appreciate the interview.